The first 10 years of the euro looked a very peaceful period, but in reality there were brewing divergences which occurred through this period. It was a period in which Germany and other countries increased their competitiveness. Germany, because of the euro, did not have the appreciation of the exchange rate, so became more competitive, more trade intensive in tradables, and other countries in the periphery benefited from the lower interest rates, from the inflow of capital, and it looked as if everything went into place in the right way. But de facto, the capital went into the wrong place, more to non-productive sectors, in particular in the housing markets, and this led to divergences not only in performances in the short term, but was embedded also in the structure of the economy, so becoming more services-oriented, housing in the south, and more industry and competitiveness in the north. And this also resulted progressively, since it lasted many years, into divergence in social preferences. And I think that the different narratives of the euro area crisis and the different preferences in terms of policy responses had their roots in these fundamental divergences which took place in the first 10 years of the euro. I think fundamentally the Eurozone crisis was not a fiscal crisis. It was a fiscal crisis in one country, Greece. This was clearly a fiscal crisis there, an issue of solvency and sustainability, and the fact that Greece was hit first tainted also the perception of the rest of the countries in the Eurozone. But actually, for many other countries which ran into troubles, the issue was more accumulation of private debt, misallocation of capital, unsustainability of their banking model, more than a fiscal crisis in origin. And for these countries then, the interplay between the banking system and the sovereigns then defined the sovereign debt crisis at the time. But the characterization of the euro crisis as essentially a fiscal crisis, I think, is historically not correct. Clearly, if one looks at the performance since 2008, 2009, but also after 2010, after the deep crisis of 2009, the performance across the Atlantic has been very different. Not that the US had a stellar performance, but clearly the recovery in Europe, which is now in the 4th year, so there is positive growth, but is still much more sluggish than in the US. I think amongst the main reasons, probably the most important reason of why Europe has recovered less rapidly than the US is the fact that we did not fix the banking problems at the very outset of the crisis, as the US did with the stress test and with the TARP program. We did not have banking union at the time. I think we meddled through, and the fact of not having fixed the banking system in the first place cast a long shadow on the rest of the crisis till the recent period. It was only at the end of 2014 that the asset quality review and I think created the conditions for recapitalization of the banks and for solidifying the banks. Clearly, we have a problem of overbanking in Europe. In some countries more than others, but this is a structural problem also with the profitability of the banking system. Today, we do not, in my assessment, have a problem of solvency of the banking system. We have a problem of profitability, which should lead banks to change their business model. I think there is also at the international level a strong support for what we have called a three-pronged strategy, so monetary, fiscal and structural reforms. We are working on clearly on all these levels with the ECB on the monetary side. We are working on, let's say, towards an evolution of the recommendation of fiscal policy, which goes through a smarter fiscal stance, supporting the economy in the short term and supporting potential growth in the longer term. This does not need to have increases in the budget deficit, but requires a review on the composition and the quality of public finances towards items with higher multipliers and higher support for TFP. At the level of the EU, I think the most important innovation of the past 2 years with the new College of Commissioners is the so-called Juncker plan. This is being implemented right now. It is based on the European Fund for investment, for strategic investment. It finances projects with higher risks than the normal project financed by the European investment banks by taking the first loss. And these are precisely projects which have higher profitability and necessarily they are riskier. So if we succeed on this, I think we have better prospects for reviving investment, which is the component of domestic demand, which has disappointed in Europe in particular, but also in the US. For the moment, we have signed projects financed by the European Fund for Strategic Investment of up to 80 billions, and I recall that the objective here for the 3 years, and we are 6 months into that, is for 315 billion. So I think we are let's say, in a good process of implementing the plan. Clearly, these are signed projects, so we'll have to wait for some months to see the results on the ground. Yeah. The projects that are financed, the Juncker plan has, and the European Fund for Strategic Investment has 2 windows. One is on financing innovative SMEs, a massive interest in this. Over 120,000 SMEs have been financed now by the Juncker plan, and in infrastructure. This is the second window of the European Fund for Strategic Investment. These are projects in network industries and also more classic projects in infrastructure. I think this is, let's say, has been a slower take-up, but I'm reasonably confident that in the next months we will see activity accelerating on that project, on that front. Also, we are putting together a pipeline of projects in the areas of the telecommunication, transport, energy, which complement also the project of, for instance, Energy Union, which is one of the big projects for the new frontier of integration in Europe.